Every sunrise is a divine reminder, a new chance, a fresh page written by the mercy of Allah. How we begin our day shapes how we live our life. The Prophet Muhammad taught us that the first moments after waking are sacred, not to be wasted in distractions or worries, but to be filled with remembrance, gratitude, and purpose. His mornings were not hurried, nor were they aimless. They were anchored in connection to Allah, to intention, and to peace. When the Prophet opened his eyes, his first words were not complaints or plans. They were Alhamdulillah, a whisper of gratitude that the soul had been returned for another chance to worship and live with meaning. Imagine beginning your day like that, not with noise but with thanks. From that first breath of gratitude, his routine flowed with light. He would perform wudu, pray Fajr, and recite Quran, aligning his heart before stepping into the demands of the world. The Prophet didn't just fill his mornings with rituals, he filled them with presence. He started his day by grounding his heart before engaging his hands. He smiled, greeted others with peace, and shared kindness, small actions that carried the fragrance of faith. His mornings were never rushed. They were intentional. Even his physical actions, cleanliness, organization, and calm demeanor, reflected a soul in harmony with its creator. We live in a time when mornings are dominated by screens, noise, and speed. But if we can pause, return to the Sunnah, and start our days the way he did, with Dhikr, prayer, reflection, and purpose, our entire life transforms. The morning is a reflection of your inner world. If your morning begins in peace, your day will echo that peace. The Prophet showed us that success isn't found in how much we do, but in how mindfully we begin. Begin with gratitude. That was the essence of how the Prophet began every morning. Before the day could begin, before the mind could be filled with thoughts, or the heart could be touched by worry, his first words were Alhamdulillah haladi ayamana banaba amatana wa alayhin nushur. All praise is due to Allah, who gave us life after causing us to die, and to him is the resurrection. Think about that. Before anything else, before opening his eyes fully, before rising from his bed, he began by acknowledging the giver of life. Gratitude was not just something he said, it was a way of living, a rhythm of the heart that never stopped beating in remembrance of Allah. In a world where we often wake up reaching for our phones, checking notifications, and letting the noise of the world rush, and before the soul even breathes, this Sunnah is a quiet revolution. To wake up and whisper Alhamdulillah is to pause the chaos and remember the source. It's to choose awareness over autopilot. Gratitude, in its purest form, is not only saying thank you, it's recognizing that every breath, every moment, every sunrise is undeserved mercy. The Prophet understood that the beginning of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. If the first word that leaves your lips is Alhamdulillah, then your first step into the world is already blessed. Gratitude shifts the energy of your heart. It softens what is hard, heals what is broken, and centers what is lost. It doesn't change the situation, it changes you within it. And that is where peace begins. When you wake up with gratitude, you are not denying life's hardships. The Prophet faced pain, loss, exhaustion, and betrayal. Yet gratitude was his constant companion. Because gratitude doesn't mean everything is perfect, it means you recognize Allah's presence even when it's not. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the night was, you were chosen to wake up again, to breathe again, to pray again, to hope again. Every morning is a silent invitation to return to him. The Prophet says gratitude was not just in words, it was in action. When he would rise for tahajjud or Fajr, he would do so with calm and awareness. His movements were gentle, his heart present. Gratitude for him meant honoring the gift of another day by using it well, in remembrance, in kindness, in purpose. It was his way of saying, via Allah, You gave me this time, let me use it in a way that pleases you. In our daily lives, gratitude can become that same quiet foundation. When you open your eyes each morning, try to notice the small mercies, the softness of your pillow, the breath in your lungs, the roof above you, the safety around you. Every single one of these things is a blessing we overlook until it's gone. The prophets never took anything for granted. Even a sip of water, a breath of air, or the sight of dawn, all were signs pointing to Allah's mercy. Gratitude is not found in having more, but in seeing more, seeing the blessings that already exist all around you. If you begin your day with Baba's Alhamdulillah, your heart learns to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. And this changes how you respond to people, how you face challenges, how you carry yourself through the hours ahead. Gratitude breeds patience. It nurtures humility. It fills the soul with enough contentment that even when life gives less, your heart feels full. The prophets taught that the one who does not thank people does not thank Allah. Gratitude flows outward. It's not meant to stay hidden in the heart. When you are grateful, you speak gently. You forgive easily. You look for good in others instead of their flaws. Starting your day with gratitude means setting your emotional tone to one of grace, not bitterness, not hurry, not resentment. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this practice is how it turns ordinary mornings into sacred moments. When you wake up and remember Allah, when your first breath is wrapped in thanks, the angels record that moment. It becomes an act of worship. Gratitude transforms something as simple as waking up into a remembrance of the hereafter. Because the very dua the Prophet Zedder recited after waking is a reminder that one day we will rise again for the final awakening. He gave his life after causing us to die. Each morning mirrors resurrection, another mercy. So tomorrow morning, when the light touches your eyes and the world is still quiet, pause before you move. Don't rush to your phone or your worries. Just whisper Alhamdulillah. Feel its weight. Let it fill your chest with calm. Let it remind you that the giver of life has chosen you once more, not because you are entitled, but because he is merciful. And if your first word is gratitude, your first step will be peace. That is how the Prophet began his day, and that is how peace begins within us. Purify and pray. This was the second step in the Prophet 7's blessed morning routine, and it holds a wisdom so deep that it can transform not just your day, but your entire relationship with life. After awakening in gratitude, the messenger of Al-Azhar would rise and purify himself, performing wudu, the ritual ablution, before standing in the presence of his Creator. That simple act of washing is far more than physical cleansing. It is a spiritual preparation, a symbolic washing away of the weight of yesterday, of sins, of distractions, of heaviness. It is the quiet act of resetting the soul before stepping into the light of prayer. When you perform the Dhikr's wudu with awareness, you begin to feel its beauty. The coolness of the water on your skin, the rhythm of the steps, washing your hands, rinsing your mouth, cleansing your face. Each motion is a reminder that you are being renewed. It's as if Allah is giving you another chance to start again, cleaner in both body and spirit. The Prophet said that when a believer performs Dhikr's wudu, their sins fall away from their body with every drop of water. Imagine that every splash of mercy, every rinse of forgiveness. By the time you finish, you are lighter, not just physically refreshed, but spiritually purified. This is why the Prophet Ali loved the Dhikr's wudu. He performed it with peace, not haste. It wasn't a routine, it was a sacred act. He understood that before standing in front of the Creator of the heavens and the earth, one must cleanse not only the body, but the heart. Purification was his way of honoring that moment. He wasn't rushing to complete a ritual. He was preparing for an intimate conversation with Allah, the one who knows his every thought, his every breath. After purification, The Prophet A0 would stand to pray as Fajr, a prayer so filled with blessing that he described it as being witnessed by the angels. The Quran says, "Indeed, the recitation of Fajr is ever witnessed." 17 of 7-8. It is a time when the world is still, when the heart is soft, when distractions are minimal and sincerity can shine. The early dawn carries a peace that can't be replicated later in the deed. It is a moment of quiet between you and Allah, a conversation before the noise of life begins. The Prophet valued this time deeply. He didn't see Fajr as a burden but as a gift. He would pray it in congregation when possible, and his recitation in Fajr was often long and reflective, verses that reminded the soul of purpose, of paradise, of accountability, of mercy. His prayer was not rushed, it was presence. It was the heart bowed before its Lord. There is something profoundly transformative about starting your day with prayer. When the first thing you do in the morning is stand before Allah, your entire day gains direction. You begin your morning not serving the world, but serving the one who created it. You remind yourself that success does not begin with emails, meetings, or plans. It begins with surrender. Prayer centers you. It grounds you in what truly matters. It draws a line between chaos and calm, between distraction and devotion. So many of us treat Fajr as optional, or we rush through it, or we let sleep take priority. But think of the Prophet Zero, a man who carried the weight of nations, the responsibility of revelation, the grief of loss, and still his mornings began in prayer. He found his strength there. He found his calm there. He found his closeness to Allah there. The more burdens he carried, the more he turned to prayer. It wasn't an escape, it was a source of power. When you begin your day with purification and prayer, you declare that your soul takes precedence over your schedule. You remind yourself that no matter what the day brings, success or failure, joy or pain, you have already aligned yourself with the one who controls it all. You've already found your peace in his remembrance. And beyond the spiritual connection, there is a deep psychological and emotional wisdom in this practice. Wudu refreshes the body, awakens the mind, and lowers stress. Prayer brings mindfulness, focus, and serenity. The simple act of standing still, bowing, and prostrating releases tension and builds humility. It reminds you that no matter how high you rise in life, your forehead still belongs on the ground before your Lord. Every morning is a new test of patience, of purpose, of peace. The Prophet taught us that you cannot control the world outside, but you can purify the world within. Wudu is that inner cleansing. Salah is that alignment. And when your inner world is pure, your outer world begins to reflect that calm. So tomorrow morning, when you rise from sleep, don't let the world rush you. Don't let your phone be your first prayer. Go to the sink. Feel the water touch your skin. Remember that you are washing away the heaviness of yesterday. Whisper Bismillah. Then stand before your Lord with humility and presence. Pray with awareness, not just with your lips, but with your heart. Let your first act of the day be purification and prayer, as the Prophet did. Because when your morning begins with purity, your day unfolds with purpose. When it begins with prayer, it unfolds with peace. And when it begins with Allah, it ends in success, no matter what happens in between. Recite Quran. That was the light that illuminated the mornings of the Prophet. After gratitude and prayer, his heart turned fully toward the words of Allah. The Quran was not merely a book to him. It was his breath, his guidance, his comfort, and his companion. It was the voice of his Lord, the map of his purpose, the rhythm of his heart. He didn't recite the Quran as an obligation. He recited it as a conversation, a living dialogue between the Creator and his servant. To begin the day with Quran is to begin the day with light, and that light touches every moment that follows. The Prophet's relationship with the Quran was intimate. He didn't just read it, he lived it. His wife, Aisha Livre described him beautifully when she said, his character was the Quran. That means every smile, every act of mercy, every word of truth that came from him reflected the verses he carried in his heart. When he recited the Quran in the quiet hours of the morning, he was not simply reading, he was internalizing divine guidance, feeding his soul before feeding his body. It was as if he drew his strength for the day directly from those sacred words. There is something indescribably peaceful about reciting Quran in the early morning. The world is still, the air, and your heart is closest to stillness. The dawn is a time of barakah, a time Allah himself swore by in the Quran. It bade the morning brightness, Surah Ad-Duha. When you recite at that hour, you are not only reading, you are being watched and recorded by angels. As the verse says, indeed, the recitation of the Quran at dawn is ever witnessed, as Surah Al-Isra 1778. It is a sacred moment where heaven listens and your heart opens. For the Prophet the Quran was both strength and solace. When he faced rejection, the Quran reminded him that every prophet before him had been tested. When he felt sadness, verses of hope came down to lift his heart. When he stood in prayer, his tears would fall as he recited verses about mercy, forgiveness, and paradise. His mornings were filled with these recitations, soft, rhythmic, sincere, his voice trembling with awe. The companions would say that they could recognize his recitation from a distance because it was filled with emotion and humility. Reciting the Quran in the morning does more than fill your time, it fills your heart with perspective. It reminds you that life is temporary, that hardships are tests, and that every moment is an opportunity to draw nearer to Allah. The Quran grounds you. It teaches you who you are and where you're going. In a world that constantly pulls your attention in 1,000 directions, the Quran brings you back home, to purpose, to balance, to peace. When you begin your day with Quran, you are choosing divine nourishment before worldly noise. You are allowing your mind to be shaped by revelation rather than by anxiety. Think of how most people start their day with messages, news, worries. All of that fills the heart with fear and distraction, but when your first sound of the morning is the recitation of Allah's words, your entire emotional state changes. You feel grounded, you feel guided, you feel loved by your Creator. Even a few verses are enough to fill your morning with light. The Prophet encouraged consistency, not quantity. He said that the most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are small but consistent. So even if you read just a page each morning, do it with focus and sincerity. Let each verse sink into your heart. Reflect on its meaning. Ask yourself, what is Allah telling me through this? The Quran is not a distant text. It's a living message sent directly to your heart. The beauty of beginning your day with Quran is that it transforms how you see the world. Suddenly, every challenge becomes a reminder of a verse. When someone wrongs you, you remember the command to forgive. When you feel lost, you recall the promise that Allah is with those who are patient. The Quran teaches you to respond rather than react, to see mercy in trials, and to trust in divine timing. It changes not only your day, but your entire mindset. The Prophet taught us that the one who has no portion of the Quran in his heart is like a ruined house. But when you fill your heart with Quran every morning, you are rebuilding your inner home. Brick by brick, the light of revelation replaces the darkness of confusion, and your heart becomes alive again. There's also an immense tranquility that comes from recitation itself. The tongue moving with the words of Allah, the sound of the verses flowing through the room. It calms the nerves, slows the breath, and draws your focus away from everything else. It's not just spiritual, it's healing. Allah himself said, we send down of the Quran that which is healing and mercy for the believers. 17:8 the more you recite, the more you heal, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. So, begin your mornings as the Prophet Sirah did, with the Quran in your hands and in your heart. Let your first conversation of the day be with Allah. Open the book not out of habit, but out of longing. Whisper the verses with love. Let them roll off your tongue gently, and let their meaning penetrate your soul. The world will rush to claim your attention soon enough, but before it does, let the words of Allah be the first thing your soul hears. Because when your day begins with Quran, no matter how chaotic it becomes, your heart will stay anchored in peace. When you carry the Quran in your heart, you are never truly lost. And when you begin your day with it, you begin with light that no darkness can take away. Engage in the constant dhikr, remembrance. That was the constant heartbeat of the Prophet Dhikr's life. After waking with gratitude, purifying himself, praying, and reciting the Quran, he would fill the spaces of his morning with verse dhikr. His tongue was always moist with the remembrance of Allah. It wasn't something he reserved for specific times or special occasions. It was woven into every breath, every movement, every pause of his day. For him, dhikr wasn't just about repeating words. It was about living in awareness of the one who sustains. The Prophet understood that the soul needs remembrance the way the body needs air. Without it, life feels empty, restless, disconnected. The world can easily pull you into its noise, tasks, distractions, and worries, and you forget that peace doesn't come from the things you chase, but from the one you remember. A sixth dhikr is that lifeline that keeps the heart awake in a world that constantly tries to make it sleep. In the mornings, when the sun began to rise, the Prophet would sit quietly and remember Allah. He would say, Subhanallah, glory be to Allah. The first, Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest, and Allah, there is no God but Allah. Each phrase carried worlds of meaning, not just sounds. Each word was like a key that unlocked a different kind of peace. Subhanallah, a reminder that Allah is far above any imperfection, that His wisdom governs all things even when we cannot see it. To Alhamdulillah, an echo of gratitude, a way of saying thank you for everything, even for what I don't understand. Allahu Akbar, a declaration that Allah is greater than every problem, greater than worry. La ilaha illallah, the foundation of faith, the remembrance that anchors the heart in oneness, in purpose. When the Prophet engaged in dhikrs, it wasn't mechanical, it was alive. His heart was present. His eyes would sometimes fill with tears. His voice would be soft, steady, full of love. The companions described how he would remember Allah in every circumstance, while walking, eating, sitting, even before sleeping. His life was one continuous remembrance. That's why he lived in peace no matter what surrounded him. Battles, losses, hunger, hardship, none of them could shake his inner calm because his heart was anchored in dhikr. Allah tells us in the Quran, verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Surah Ar-Rad 13:28. That rest is something the modern world is starving for. We seek it in success, in people, in entertainment, in escape. But the Prophet Sirah found it in remembrance. 6 dhikr is not about escaping life. It's about bringing Allah into your life so that even the ordinary moments become sacred. The beauty of dhikr is that it needs no special setting. You don't need a prayer mat or a specific place. You can remember Allah while cooking, walking, driving, or working. The Prophet Dhikr taught us to make dhikr natural, constant, to let it become the background of our hearts. The tongue moves, but the heart feels. Over time, you begin to live in that awareness, and that is when real peace enters your life. In the mornings, a dhikr was a way for the Prophet to protect his heart before entering the world. He would say the morning as God's adhkar, those beautiful supplications that shield the believer from harm, worry, and evil throughout the day. Phrases like Bismillah, Bismillah, Ladi Ilidara Masmafir, Shaman Phil, Ardi Walla Phil, as Samai Wahahua, as Samuel, name of the with whose name nothing in the earth or the heavens can harm, and he is the all-hearing, all-knowing. These were not just words, they were his spiritual armor. Through Dhikr, he began each day protected, connected, and calm. Imagine carrying that same light into your morning. Before checking messages, before rushing into your responsibilities, you pause to say Subhanahu wa ta'ala, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. You sit with those words for a moment and let them settle your heart. Suddenly, the noise quiets. The world feels less heavy. You remember that you are not alone, that Allah is with you, hearing you, guiding you. This simple act transforms your energy. You walk into your day not as someone overwhelmed by tasks, but as someone accompanied by the divine. Dhikr is also a way of transforming pain. When the Prophet faced difficulty, he would turn to remembrance. When something upset him, he would say, there is no power and no strength except through Allah. That phrase became a release, a reminder that nothing happens except by His will, and that every hardship is carried by His strength. The more he remembered, the calmer he became. That is the hidden beauty of Dhikr. It doesn't always change the situation, but it always changes the heart within it. Every heart has a rhythm, and the rhythm of a believer's heart should be remembrance. Without Dhikr, the heart feels heavy, anxious, lost. But when it's filled with remembrance, even chaos feels lighter. That's why the Prophet would often say that the difference between one who remembers Allah and one who doesn't is like the difference between the living and the dead. Dhikr brings the heart back to life. So take a lesson from his mornings. Fill your dawn with remembrance. Whisper his name softly. Reflect on their meanings. Let your heart beat with Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Don't rush through it. Let each word become a moment of connection. And as you move through your day, keep the remembrance flowing in your silence, in your work, in your stillness. When you engage in Dhikrs, you are doing what the Prophet did every day, feeding your soul, softening your heart, and anchoring yourself in peace that no storm can take away. Remember Allah in ease, and He will remember you in difficulty. Begin your mornings with the Dhikr, and watch how the tranquility of that remembrance follows you through every moment, until your whole life becomes a living prayer. Spread positivity. This was one of the most radiant qualities of the Prophet sitters, and it's shown most beautifully in his mornings. After remembering Allah through gratitude, prayer, Quran, and Dhikr, he would step into his day carrying light, a light that touched every soul he met. His presence itself was peace. People would say that when he smiled, it was as if the sun had risen again. His energy was gentle, uplifting. The Prophet didn't simply wake up for himself. He woke up for others. Every morning was an opportunity to spread goodness, to share warmth, to bring comfort to those around him. He began his day with peace on his tongue. Oh, assalamu alaikum. Not just as a greeting, but as a prayer. May peace be upon you. Imagine starting your day like that, giving the world a message of peace before anything else. The Prophet used to say, Acts, spread peace among you. He made it clear that one of the simplest and most powerful acts of faith is to greet others with peace. That one phrase carries more than politeness. It's a declaration of goodwill, a promise of safety, a transfer of positive energy. When you say Salam, you're saying, you are safe from my harm, and I wish you only goodness. The Prophet spread positivity in everything he did, not through speeches or grandiose, but through small, sincere acts that transformed hearts. His smile was constant. His kindness was effortless. He noticed people, he acknowledged them, he lifted their spirits. When someone spoke to him, he turned his full body toward them. When a child greeted him, he bent down to their level. When a companion was sad, he comforted them with words that carried healing. His mornings were filled with these simple acts of humanity. Because for him, spreading positivity was not about trying to make an impression. It was about embodying mercy. He said, do not belittle any good deed, even if it is meeting your brother with a cheerful face. To him, a smile was a form of charity. That means you don't need wealth or status to spread goodness. You only need sincerity. The Prophet Deceiver taught us that every person we meet is an opportunity to plant a seed of light in their heart through kindness, respect, and compassion. His positivity wasn't selective. It wasn't only for those who loved him or believed in him. Even those who insulted him, rejected him, or tried to harm him still saw his patience, gentleness, and dignity. His positivity was a reflection of his inner peace. Because when the heart is connected to Allah, it cannot be poisoned by Buddha. The mornings of the Prophet were filled with barakah, not just because of his worship, but because of his attitude. He didn't allow negativity to linger. If something troubled him, he turned to dhikr or prayer. If someone wronged him, he forgave. If he saw a problem, he sought to solve it with wisdom and empathy. He saw the best in people and drew it out. When companions argued, he reconciled them. When someone made a mistake, he corrected them gently, without humiliation. This was his way of spreading light, by healing rather than hurting, by encouraging rather than criticizing. In our own mornings, we can revive that Sunnah. The world today feels heavy, full of noise, stress, and pessimism. But the Prophet showed us that the most powerful form of positivity is not denial of pain. It is choosing mercy in the face of it. Start your day with kindness, smile at your family, thank the ones you love, send a message of encouragement to someone who needs it. Say salam to a neighbor, compliment a colleague, forgive someone quietly in your heart. These small acts of goodness ripple outward in ways you may never see. Positivity in the way the Prophet lived it is not just about mood, it's about intention. It's about deciding to be a source of light in a world that sometimes forgets how to shin. It's about controlling your tongue, avoiding gossip, speaking only what is good, or remaining silent. It's about choosing gentleness when anger feels easier, patience when frustration calls louder, forgiveness when ego demands revenge. The Prophet said, "The strong person is not the one who can overpower others, but the one who controls himself when angry." That self-control, that calmness, is the essence of spreading positivity. Every morning, the Prophet would remind his companions of hope. He would encourage them, motivate them, and strengthen their faith. He would tell them that Allah's mercy is greater than their sins, that no hardship is permanent, and that every trial comes with purpose. His words were not heavy, they were healing. He built people up instead of breaking them down. He taught them that being a believer means being a source of comfort to others. That when people meet you, they should feel peace, not tension, warmth, not fear. If you want to begin your day like the Prophet start by spreading that peace, not only in words, but in presence. Carry a calm heart. Be gentle with those around you. Replace complaints with alhamdulillah. Replace criticism with prayer. Replace anger with patience. When you do this, you reflect the prophetic light that once changed the world, but through compassion. Spreading positivity is more than being cheerful. It is an act of worship. It is following in the footsteps of the one who was sent as a mercy to the world. Every smile you give, every kind word you speak, every act of goodness you share, it all becomes a reflection of that mercy. And when you begin your mornings with that intention, you bring barakah into your day. You transform not only your own mood, but the atmosphere around you. So, as the prophets did, wake up in peace, live with kindness, and carry light wherever you go. Be someone whose presence reminds others of Allah, whose words bring hope, and whose actions spread warmth. Because in a world full of darkness, the most prophetic thing you can do is to be alive intentionally. That was the rhythm of the Prophet of life's life from the moment he opened his eyes to the time he closed them at night. Every breath, every step, every word had purpose. He did not move through life by accident or habit. He lived with sarnoya, conscious intention, and that intention transformed the ordinary into worship, the small into significant, and the routine into sacred. For him, every day was an opportunity to draw closer to Allah, to serve, to grow, to give. That is what it means to live intentionally, to live awake, not asleep, to live with meaning, not motion. When the Prophet began his mornings, he did not drift aimlessly through the hours. He began with focus. His heart was anchored in remembrance, and his actions flowed from that awareness. After prayer, Quran, and Dhikr, he would plan his day. He would allocate time for family, for teaching, for community, and for reflection. Even his moments of rest were purposeful. He didn't waste time, yet he didn't rush through it either. His pace was balanced, his priorities clear. He has said once said, and your Lord has a right over you, your body has a right over you, and your family has a right over you, so give everyone their due. This was intentional living, knowing what matters most and honoring it with discipline and care. Living intentionally means understanding that time is not just passing, it's a trust. The Prophet was deeply aware of this. He said, each has take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your business, and your life before your death. Each day was for him a gift to be invested. He didn't let days blend together in distraction. He valued mornings because he understood that how you spend your time is how you spend your life. When you start your day with intention, your entire existence gains direction. The Prophet's intentionality showed in the smallest details. When he ate, he remembered Allah. When he spoke, he measured his words. When he walked with humility. When he rested with trust. Even the most mundane tasks became acts of worship because his intention was pure. He taught that actions are judged by intentions, innamal amalu binniyat, and that means everything you do, from your work to your relationships, can become a form of worship if your heart is aligned with Allah. To live intentionally is to pause before you act, to ask yourself why? Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Why am I spending my time here? The Prophet constantly reminded his companions to renew their intentions, to purify their motives, to make sure their hearts were directed toward Allah rather than the approval of people. That self-awareness protected him from distractions, from arrogance, from the emptiness of living without meaning. He did not do things for recognition. His intention was always for the sake of Allah, and that sincerity gave power to everything he did. In our world today, it's easy to live reactively, to wake up and be pulled immediately into demands, screens, notifications, and noise. But intentional living is about taking back control of your time, your energy, your attention. It's about starting your morning with purpose instead of panic. The Prophet began his day grounded, not checking who needed him, but remembering who created him. He prioritized his inner world before his outer responsibilities. He taught us that success doesn't begin with what you do, but with why you do it. Living intentionally also means living in balance. The Prophet never went to extremes. He would pray at night but also rest. He would fast often but also eat when invited. He would teach his companions but also play with children. His life was a masterpiece of moderation, a life that reflected peace because it was guided by awareness. He was present in every moment. When he was with someone, they felt as though they were the most important person in the world. When he prayed, His heart was fully there. When he worked, he was focused. He didn't multitask his soul. That presence is the essence of intentional living. To live intentionally is also to have goals, spiritual, emotional, and worldly, that align with your higher purpose. The Prophet thus had a mission to spread mercy and truth. Every choice he made reflected that mission. He didn't waste his energy on what didn't matter. He didn't chase worldly status or material gain. He understood that the real success is not how much you have, but how much you serve. Every morning, he realigned himself with that purpose. That's why his days carried the bells of barakah, because they were guided by vision, not by impulse. We, too, can live that way. When you wake up, remind yourself this day is a test, a trust, and an opportunity. Set your intention before you begin, not just to work or achieve, but to serve Allah through whatever you do. Whether you're studying, cooking, leading, helping, or simply resting, let it be for Him. Even the smallest acts become immense when done with the right intention. A smile, a kind word, a task completed with sincerity, all of it adds weight to your scales. Intentional living is also about reflection. At the end of the day, the Prophet Dhikr would seek forgiveness from Allah and evaluate his actions. He didn't assume perfection. He constantly sought growth. That humility kept him aligned, grounded, aware. Living intentionally means doing the same, pausing to ask, did I live today for Allah? Did I bring goodness to others? Did I protect my heart from heedlessness? These quiet questions turn every day into a mirror, every moment into a lesson. So live your mornings and your life with intention. Don't let your days pass in repetition without reflection. Wake with gratitude, act with awareness, and end with accountability. Remember that the Prophet changed the world not by rushing, but by living with deep purpose in every step. When you live intentionally, your time gains value, your heart gains, and your life gains meaning. Every day becomes a chapter in your worship, every action a reflection of love, and that is the way of the Prophet Zero, to live not merely existing, but fully awake, fully aware, and fully aligned with the one who gave you life.